Perfect. All right. Well, today is our last group. I can't believe it's been 4 weeks. I hope it's been a helpful piece for you guys being able to join us. And really, what I wanted to be able to talk about today was how to take a break during the holidays, or like when we talk with kids about it, how to call a timeout. And again, as we've been talking about the anxiety and stress, maybe even what to do when we call a timeout, because so often when people maybe like go off and take a break for a minute, I find that they engage more in avoidance in avoidance activities other than really engaging in things that are going to help them calm down and then be able to go back and reconnect. So that's our goal for today. We have one more strategy or relaxation tool that we're going to talk about at the end. So there's a paper in your packet and it looks like this. And so we're just going to go over that and use that towards the end of our group. So the first thing I wanted to start with, and maybe it's something that you've done periodically at times in your life, but for me, I think it's really important to review highs and lows. Some people call them roses and thorns, or there's all different kinds of names for it. But often when we're in anxiety or stress, we get so focused on the lows, right? And our mind just lands right there that we forget to add in the highs. And one thing I'm trying to do this year is really focus on that First Thessalonians verse, and today's the 18th. So if you're on our social media, we'll be doing a Thanksgiving challenge, but be able to give thanks in all circumstances. And for me, that's related to the highs and lows. We've talked about our brain landing on a certain train, right, and not being able to get off of it. And to me, going through highs and lows with a group or writing them down is an important way to get your brain off of those negative pieces that build up. So highs and lows is a tool that I've used most of the time in youth group. My background is being a DCE. So oftentimes we would start off as sharing your highs and lows from the week. Maybe it's something you do with a spouse, with a friend, or just with yourself personally, but to be able to take your mind off of getting so focused on those negative things and put it into perspective. I share all of that with you because one of my favorite authors is a man named Dan Siegel. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's not a Christian author, but he writes a lot of books on the brain. And one of the things that he talks about, or an analogy that he gives, is if you had like a bicycle tire. Okay, so I want you to envision a bicycle tire. And where we want to be is right in the hub, in the center of that bicycle tire, emotionally and spiritually and physically. But what so often happens is if you would envision that tire is filled with all of those highs and lows going on in your life, you get stuck down one spoke, one little wire, right? And you focus on the fact that it's Christmas and my bank account's running low and I can't, instead of remaining there in that hub. So I hope that some of our relaxation activities or things that you have been practicing help you to get in that hub, that centerpiece of that bicycle, where you can see all of the highs and lows and all of the things in a realistic perspective that are going on in your life. So when we work to call a timeout, okay, that's what we want to do. We want to be able to find that hub back into that center. So I use the word timeout in education anymore. I don't even think they're allowed to use that word, but basically it's about taking a break, right? Maybe you're in the middle of a house filled with people and you're feeling overwhelmed and you need to physically remove yourself for a minute. I think a lot of times for people, taking a break or walking away or setting aside some time to call a timeout is hard, first and foremost, because they don't know what to say. Right? It's like you need to prepare language when you're feeling overwhelmed and how you take a break or how you call a timeout. You also need to think about where do I go for a minute? Like if I think last time a lot of people in our group shared, they go home for Christmas. So where in that space, it's not really my space, do I feel safe enough to calm myself down or recenter myself? I used to go home for Christmas. I think I told you guys that they all followed me to Orlando. It was crazy. But I remember when I went home, my bedroom had a lot. That didn't feel like a good place at times. So finding a place, if you're going home or wherever you're going for the holidays, to be able to call a timeout is going to be important. And then what you do when you call a timeout. So first, let's talk about things that we say when we're feeling overwhelmed. There are literal statements like, I just need a minute, or can you give me a second, that are important. I think for some people, we use our phones, right, to take a timeout, maybe right there in front of other people, but saying, I need to go make a phone call, or I need to check on something, to physically remove yourself from a situation is going to be important. If you're in a group that you feel comfortable with and saying, I'm just feeling a little overwhelmed right now, and I'll be back in a minute. What I find often, like if you're going home or you're with friends and you call a timeout, people will follow you. They will not give you a minute or a break. So it's so important to say, hey, I'm going to go sit here. I'm going to go do this for about 5 minutes and I will be back. Giving people time frames to expect when you will return, it means they're less likely to come and follow you. When I do couples counseling, we teach that. So you're really ticking me off and I need a minute, but if I never return, or if they don't know when I'm returning, it makes a person feel insecure. So to say to them, I'll be back in about 15 minutes, it almost gives them permission to wait 15 minutes to come and find you. You know what I'm saying? So setting that time limit is going to give you an excuse, but also give them some reassurance that you will return. Okay? So I think of situations about calling a timeout. We've talked about situations going home. We've talked about situations at church when people are bugging us. We've talked about situations maybe where we're just triggered by some grief and loss, or maybe being out shopping. All of those kinds of environments and spaces, there is going to be time for us that we might need to go and take a timeout or take a break. So knowing what to say and then finding a space. Personally, for me, if I'm in a place I don't know, might sound crazy, but the bathroom, people don't tend to follow you there, just saying. So it can be that space for a minute that I can check out or look at myself in the mirror and have that little talk of like, what are you doing, girl? Like, calm down, you know? Or maybe there's a room in a house that nobody's using. Or maybe if you're out shopping again, going to your car. A car can be another nice, safe space. So my goal that I really want to talk to you about, though, is what do you do? What do you do when you take a timeout? So many people, when they take a pause to recenter themselves, normally pull out their phone, jump on social media, watch a funny video, aren't really doing stuff to address what's going on with them internally, okay? So it's so important that we are not taking a break to avoid. We are taking a break to recenter, to get ourselves back in that hub that I just showed you or just talked with you about, okay? So when you take a break, it's a purposeful break. It's not an avoidance break. So I'm going to throw out some tools and talk to you about them, and then I want to have a little discussion about how you guys recenter yourselves. So a couple things that I want to share with you that often people have brought up to recenter themselves is one, music or a song or something that's first going to de-escalate, right? Calm down your emotions. And songs are nice because they're time limited, right? 3 minutes, 2 minutes. So I've listened to some music, I've calmed myself down, and then usually there's an action after that. I think I told you for me, sometimes I'm in the bathroom. So that little chat with myself in the mirror is important. A tool that I have just found recently that I am not an artsy, craftsy person, but I just love this. It is called a bullet journal. And you can make bullet journals be whatever you want them to be. But for me, there's a lot of things in my bullet journal. I'm trying to show you a fun page that I track. So I track healthy habits that I'm trying to do, my devotions, my workout. Even on here, straight up honest with you, is the name of all three of my kids. Because I find that I can go 24 hours without even like saying, hey, I love you, or are you having a good day, right? Because life gets so busy. But the point of a bullet journal, in all honesty, is a space where you just dump things, where you just write out things. And so often we need that space to just dump things, to just write out stuff. And I think we've talked about it before, do a brain dump, or a place where we go and we list our highs and lows. So if you're interested in a bullet journal, get online and type in bullet journal, and you might be a little overwhelmed, okay? Because everybody makes these like beautiful bullet journal pages, but you don't have to do that. The point of a bullet journal is put whatever you want on anything. And the main idea is that you would have an index, and you would write the numbers on the pages as you go, and then you would index them. Does that make sense? So you're keeping track of whatever it is you want to put in there. But I encourage you to look into this, especially as we're going through the holidays. I think I've started like 20 Christmas lists in here. I don't know. But sometimes it's just about getting what's off of your brain. So in calling a timeout, the goal is to get back and to center yourself in that hub. For me, like I said, I'm an out loud kind of person. I acknowledge that not everybody is. Some people are internal people. So sometimes for me, calling a timeout, I might be getting on the phone with a friend and saying, these people are crazy, come find me. No, I'm joking. But talking to somebody, I remember I have a good friend and she had a baby and I got that phone call. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm in the bathroom crying because nobody understands me. And so that was how she got herself back in her hub, was she just called somebody and centered herself. But the point of that is to center yourself. A lot of times that can be pulling out your phone and finding scripture that you've bookmarked, things that are going to calm you back down so you can re-enter your environment. All right, I'm pausing our recording so we have a little discussion on how we get into that hub. So our relaxation tool that I wanted to teach you is something that we teach students to be able to do. So there's 3 breathing exercises on here, okay? And you don't have, once you get the hang of it, you don't have to have the paper to do it. So it's almost like you can do this in a group, or like we teach students that they could do it in class and nobody would know that they're doing it, if that makes sense, okay? So all you do is you run your fingers along each one of these and you do what it says. So for me personally, the figure 8 one, or the infinity symbol, whatever you want to call it, is really easy for my brain to remember. So you start in the middle and you breathe in and then you breathe out, right? And the goal is like not to go super fast, right? It's to go at a regular pace in that way. Breathe in, breathe out. And then you can see the same thing. It's kind of like that breathing exercise I went through on a different group. The breathe in for 3, hold for 3, breathe out for 3. The star one, I always feel like somebody's gonna hyperventilate because it is like, you could do that super fast and it not be healthy, but for some people, they really like it. But the goal is that it would settle you back down. So for students or for people who work in public places, or, you know, maybe if you're on the phone and you're feeling super overwhelmed, you can just run your finger in a figure 8 on a desk. You could do it on your leg as you're standing up. You could do the triangle, all of those things. And the goal would be that it's not just about breathing, but it's the tactile touch that will center you, right? So it's one of those pieces too that could get you back in your hub, because we know when you bring in a sensory piece along with the breathing, your brain works to ground you back to the situation, okay? So very simple, nothing that I would encourage you to practice it or keep it on a desk or something that you would use, but a very easy piece to be able to calm your breathing down in the middle of a heightened or stressful situation and work to ground yourself. So just a nice little tool I wanted to give you. Tuck it in your pocket and be able to do that. I've been so blessed to be able to do this virtual group, and I love the conversations that we've had and the ways that we've looked to engage. I'm going to throw this idea out there because it keeps popping up for me. We had 20 people sign up for this group. A lot of people view the video afterwards. So we're going to offer another group in January, or I am, and I'm going to include a discussion board with that so that there could be some discussion going on during the week, but it would just be, typing it into a discussion board. So that's an idea that's popped up at our office. But the survey that you're going to get, you can add more things to it or just recommendations. But I would really encourage you to just take a couple minutes to fill that out for me. This is a grant-funded virtual group, and we'd love to just get feedback and figure out how we could continue this in that way. All of that being said, I know that the holidays are stressful and overwhelming, not just for you, but for me too. Took 3 kids shopping yesterday at Target. That was crazy. So my prayers and my blessings are with you. I pray that these tools that we've taught you and the things that we have talked about have been helpful. If you'd like to, on the survey, you can put your email in and we can add you to our newsletter and send out more information to you as our groups come up. I'm going to stick around for a minute on our group if there's anything you'd like to share or any feedback that you'd like to give. But I pray blessings upon your Christmas.